Hi, I'm Brenda Byron, Executive Director of Prairie Lakes Regional Arts Council. We're hosting an exhibit here at Bethany Lutheran College. This is our 7th annual Prairie Lakes McKnight Artist Grantee exhibit, and we're showcasing 23 artists that receive grants. It is in a variety of media, so we have 16 visual artists talking about their writing, and we have visual artists doing paintings and drawing and sculpture. Here at the reception on a Sunday afternoon at Bethany, we're also showcasing our literary artists and our performers as far as playwrights and musicians. So we're having a great day here at the exhibit. We're having a reception featuring all of the artists, and you have in January and February to stop in here at Bethany Lutheran College to see this wonderful exhibit of artists that live in our 9-county area.
I used the money, the generous grant, to write a new play. And the name of the play, it's a full-length play called Dichotomy. And the play is written in 2 acts. And the first act takes place in the office of a psychiatrist. And in the main character in this case, Mr. Stevenson, who we'll hear from here momentarily, he's grappling with issues in his personal life, which includes PTSD, and then as we discover through this process, he was abused as a child, and so he's coming to grapple with all that. So that's really what the first act is about. That first act, actually, we had an opportunity to perform that act in Minneapolis last year, so we were very excited about that. So the second act takes place 35 years later. So now we come back to Andrew 35 years later, and lo and behold, guess what? He's now a cardinal, an American cardinal, and the play in the second act takes place in the Vatican. And we're actually electing a new pope. And so he's actually having an opportunity to cast a vote for the new pope. So a lot has happened in between those many years between Act 1 and Act 2. So that's in essence the play, again, Dichotomy. Again, the grant, I use the grant to do things like pay for workshops. What we do with workshops is I write the play, like we all do, and when I write it, it's fabulous. My God, they're giving me Tonys all over the place. It's an incredible, but then when you hear it out loud, you go, oh my God, it's terrible. And, the characters are weak, they don't mean anything, I don't even know what the story's about, it rambles. That's what a workshop does for us. So it allows me to bring in and pay professional actors, in case we do have some here. 2 out of 3 of these are professional. You'll have to figure out which 2 it is. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding. But I also, with the grant, was able to go to Minneapolis and have the play workshopped at the Playwright Center. And that's also where we use professional actors. And it's an amazing event to actually hear professional actors read your script. So it goes a long way in helping develop what eventually will become a final product. So very excited about that. Also the second act, which a piece of it we're going to hear today, was also performed at the last Frontier Theater Conference in Valdez, Alaska, which is a national writing conference in which theater, television, and film artists from all over the world in those various medium come together, believe it or not, for the writer. It's an extraordinary event. And I've had an opportunity to go to several of those. So this play was also read and workshopped there. So it's quite extraordinary. So all of that was made possible because of the grant. Okay, now I'm going to get to it here. But let me just set the scene for you a little bit. What's happened is we're at the Vatican. We're in the Sistine Chapel. Literally right now in the Sistine Chapel. I guess not literally, right? Scratch. Okay, so we're in the Sistine Chapel where we're casting our votes, the cardinals are, to elect a new pope. Unfortunately, they couldn't come to a consensus. So they've had vote after vote after vote after vote. But now we're at this strange place where, for various reasons, our hero, Andrew, has just been elected. They voted for him to be pope. This is the American cardinal. Makes no sense at all. And now in this scene what's happened is Andrew shocks us, and he says, no thank you. No thank you. I can't accept. No accepto. So that's the scene we're set. So I'm going to turn it over to Leslie, let her introduce the cast, and I'm getting out of the way.
Thanks, Tom.
I'm Leslie Dupre. and Tom has already spoken about that. We've worked together multiple times, and it's amazing. Mankato is blessed with hundreds of talented people, and here are 3 of them. This is Chad.
No.
At the end. Hey, you're a Brandcamp, it doesn't matter. This is Chad Brandcamp, and this is his father, John. So we have several families who come together and do different projects with us, and everyone gets the bug and gets hooked. And Darren Wacker, also many years with different projects around Mankato, merely players and privately funded things as well, that we are so grateful for. It changes lives. It does. It really does. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll be doing the narration, which includes stage directions, and that gives you a better visual of putting you in the space of what you need to be in. So, you guys ready? Okay. Sistine Chapel in Rome, Italy, and ornate chairs are set in a square horseshoe. The back of the horseshoe faces the audience. The middle chair is at the back of the horseshoe, and it is larger than the rest. The small altar sits before the middle chair. A golden chalice sits atop of the altar. Next to the chalice are dozens of folded index cards. The Last Judgment mural hangs behind the altar. And at the rise, Dulac and Metzer are seated and having a quiet conversation. Stevenson enters stage left and walks about the chapel before approaching Dulac and Metzer.
I can appreciate the burden of such monumental responsibilities, and no one has a right to question your decision.
Thank you.
That said, and please forgive me, but I cannot sit idly without at least attempting to understand your decision.
This is not a decision any man can make alone. It is one that requires the intervention of the Holy Spirit. And your election today suggests that He has spoken. It is you He chooses. I could not.
Stevenson stands and pauses.
I could not have made it more clear after the previous vote. I'm not qualified. I am not the right man.
He thinks otherwise.
Don't I have the right to refuse? The church needs you. You cannot deny her. Pardon me if I quote Jeremiah, "You have duped me, O Lord, and I have let myself be duped." This is a nightmare.
Yeah, you have nonetheless been elected, then you should accept. I, for one, am honored to serve you as you would serve the people. Your Holiness, we are now your servants.
Please, don't call me that. Please. The man you see before you is not the man you have imagined.
Cardinal Stevenson, you are the right man. And unless you have killed someone, stolen from the church, or you've a child hidden in a closet, there is nothing in your past or present that disqualifies you in God's eyes. I can't help but think, despite your denial, that your father's sins weigh heavy on your mind. You must accept that those matters are indeed unimportant in the here and now. You are the most qualified man among us to be our Pope.
I cannot.
Historically, many of the newly elected popes entered into private prayer and sought out the sacrament of reconciliation before...
I'm suddenly feeling lightheaded.
Please sit, Your Holiness.
I asked you not to call me that.
Please sit, Father.
Stevenson sits in the closest chair.
In my days as a seminarian, I have propagated an illusion supported by my belief that I have had the right to my own personal truths, my own private secrets. A pope cannot have such secrets.
This is why you have refused?
Did I not warn you against having secrets? Francois, did I not say secrets would be our downfall? Did I not?
Yes, Carl, you did. But you're not being helpful now.
What? Oh, yes, of course. Perhaps you should share with us these secrets and allow us to assess with you their importance in the scheme of things. What is this sin? I'm not committing a sin. Father Metzer, I just can't. I'm sorry, but I do not understand any of this.
What am I missing? You have secrets that aren't sins, and yet you can't be Pope.
Francois. Francois.
Yes, oui. Perhaps I understand.
Stevenson nods.
Carl, I have come to the conclusion that we should support Father Stevenson in his decision to refuse, and each of us should move on in support of another.
What are you talking about, Francois? It is too late just to move on. Clearly he is feeling guilt over something he did or failed to do. I think it is incumbent upon us to help him work through this.
Metzer again has another episode with his breathing and struggles to sit down and looks a little disoriented.
We should call a doctor.
No, I will be fine. Francois, can you bring me another glass of water?
Duloc brings Metzer some water. Metzer pulls out a small container, takes a pill with his water, and appears more relaxed.
So, Cardinal Stevenson, what is this guilt that weighs so heavily on you?
Trust me, Your Eminence, it's not guilt. If anything, it's probably the fear of being judged or misunderstood or worse. I fear loss.
Of your position in the church?
Of being a priest.
Stevenson walks about the chapel.
Have either of you heard of the Bonobos?
Andy, we've discussed this enough. You don't owe us any further explanation. I support your decision to not accept. We should move on to other matters.
The what? What is this bonobos?
The bonobos is a species of great ape recognized as being the most closely related to man.
Nein, I have never heard of this thing. Have you, Francois? Is it important?
The bonobos is endangered because man threatens the sanctity of its social order within the few remaining rainforests. The ape's only chance for survival is to hide deep in the jungles, hiding its very existence.
We're talking about monkeys, right?
In addition to being among the most intelligent of the great apes, the bonobos is unique in the high frequency of homosexual behavior among the males of the species.
I don't understand. What does this have to do with...
Andy, don't. Nothing further can be gained.
I'm gay, Cardinal Metzer.
What? This monkey is homosexual?
Carl, Andy is telling us something very personal.
About monkeys?
Andy is gay.
No, he's not. I don't believe it.
Whether you believe it or not, I am a priest, I am a cardinal, and I am gay.
Metzer slowly stands and with great struggle walks about the room, working to contain his feelings of both anger and betrayal.
You said this secret was not a sin. If you are homosexual, you are sinning. And thank God you got something right. You could never be Pope.
I've maintained my vow of celibacy.
If you are homosexual, you are sinning.
Being gay is not a sin.
You might twist some words on me, but you are sinning.
Andy is correct, Carl. And you know this. Homosexuality is not a sin. Homosexual behavior, on the other hand, is a sin. As we expect of all priests, Andy has been celibate.
Yes, since entering the seminary.
This or that doesn't matter. We cannot permit a homosexual Pope. It is preposterous.
Then we are agreed, and these matters shall remain private between us.
Of course. Such deviancy has no place in the Vatican.
I promise you, Father, I am not a deviant.
You should have disclosed this long ago. There are places we could send you for a cure.
Carl, if a priest is chaste, is he now holding his sacred vows?
This is different. Don't make light of these things.
Indulge me. And now explain how this is different than you and I maintaining our celibacy.
My God! He is a homosexual! Can you imagine the effect that would have on our church if such things were disclosed? No! I will not have it. I am disgusted to even talk about this.
As Pope Francis I once said, who are we to judge? Father Stevenson has done no wrong. You may not like the fact that he is black or short or homosexual. These things do not violate our dogma.
You dare invoke Francis on these matters. Being black and homosexual are not synonymous. One does not choose to be black. He has chosen to be homosexual. And don't worry about who might be judging him in this room. The world will judge him harshly, and by association, our church. No, this cannot be.
Any priest who falls in love with a woman and acts upon it is sinning. If the priest is attracted to that same woman, but walks away, he has not sinned. Correct me if I am wrong.
We are not talking about a priest who loves a woman. We are talking about a priest who loves boys. There is a big difference.
This is exactly as I'd feared, and the reason
Stevenson walks towards the altar, crosses himself, and then exits stage left, unnoticed.
Carl, I expected a little more enlightenment from you.
So now you would preach to me. I am not the homosexual who almost tricked us into making him Pope.
Thinking some compassion might be appropriate.
Let's say you're right on all accounts, which you are not. Do you honestly believe we could survive a homosexual Pope?
Who's to say we haven't already?
Blasphemy!
Lights down and end of the scene.
Thanks, guys.
Again, this is Jack Williams with his play performance, and Jack is from Waseca.
Right, thank you, Brenda, Cindy, for the opportunity to do this, and the Prairie Lakes Regional Arts Center for providing us the grant money to have me write the play and then mount it. They provided the money for the sets and the costuming and everything else. And the concept of this, it's entitled The Prisoner's Hands. And that came about because of a project that the junior high had a couple of years ago, where they would invite book authors into the school, and the entire school would read the book, and then we'd have the author come in and discuss the book. And not only did the teachers and the students read the books, but the cooks and the custodians were part of this as well. So everybody had a common discussion, and they knew what they were talking about because everybody was reading the book. And we were invited to be, my wife and I here, to be part of a discussion, role playing. And we played the part of a parents that had a child that was beaten up and had some brain damage. And so we got to meet with the person that beat up our son. And during that role-playing situation, I came up, I just improvised, because it was just make it up as you go along. I said, I want you to remember, whenever you look in your hands, the face of my son as you beat him up. I want that image to be in your hands for the rest of your life. Well, lo and behold, as a playwright, I thought, oh, that has an idea here. What if I were to write a play dealing with prisoner's hands, so that if somebody could see the image of the person that they killed or beat up in their hands every time they looked at their hands, how would that affect their life? So that was the concept of the play. So now writing it was the other part. And how do I go about doing that? I started to write it up, and as it developed, the characters were added to the story. Originally, I planned to write a play that could be performed by males and females, but as it turned out, it became a play for just females. It was a female prison. And the character became Cheek. And Karen on the end here, she's a play director at Waseca as well, and a teacher in the English department. And she plays Cheek. Tiana, she's the sister of the victim. And there's a little twist of her connection to her sister a little bit later in the story that you'll hear a little bit later. But today she's also reading the part of Billy, a prisoner who's a motor mouth and irritating. And was one of the fun parts and characters that I enjoyed writing for. My wife played the part of the mother of the person that had been killed. and she's doing that part, as well as a television reporter. So, and I'm going to be a judge and a narrator today. That's my role. So without saying anything more, we're going to let the story just develop. We've taken a 40-minute play and condensed it down to about 20 minutes. So, are you kids ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Gretchen Heath reporting for Channel 10. I'm in the courtroom of Judge Lynn Thomas, who is about to announce the sentence of convicted murderer Cheek Reese. 3 days ago, a jury found Miss Reese guilty of the brutal strangulation murder of Marcy Reagan, a young college student, for $5 and a Starbucks gift card. The Reagan family has entered the courtroom. Mrs. Reagan's face shows the strains of weeks listening to the gruesome details of her daughter's horrific death at the hands of what some are calling a heartless beast with no sign of remorse. Even though the verdict is guilty, they show no signs of relief. Their loss is too great for celebration. The defendant's facial expression is blank, but her eyes have a dark, defiant stare that chills you to the bone. Judge Lynn Thomas is entering the room. I'll be back immediately after the court has adjourned. Gretchen Heath, sending it back to you in the studio.
Court is in session. You may be seated. The jury has found the defendant, Cheek Reese, guilty of second-degree murder and the death of Marcy Reagan. We are here today to issue the sentence. Before the court announces the length of your incarceration, the family has requested time to address the defendant. Mrs. Reagan, you may read your statement.
Thank you, Judge Thomas. It is extremely difficult for me to be here, but I do have something to say. A part of me died the day you killed my precious, precious daughter. There'll be no more good morning hugs or goodbye, Mom, I love you, as she rushes out the door. I'll miss the little things she did, the way she sipped that last drop of soda from the glass with that annoying slurping sound, and hop on one foot to put her shoe on. I'll miss sitting on the couch watching television with her toes digging in my back. Her sense of humor. First she would slam the car door shut, then yell, "Watch your fingers." You may have taken these moments from me, but you can never, never take her memory. I can't imagine what could have happened in your past to make you take a person's life. My Marcy's life, my Marcy. And for what? $5 and a Starbucks gift card? It makes no sense. No sense at all. I'm sorry. I can't go on.
Whitney Reagan, the blind sister of the victim, steps to the podium.
My name is Whitney Reagan. Judge Thomas, thank you for this opportunity to address the court. I can't see you, but I can feel the chill in your soul. I won't tell you how you killing my sister affected me. You wouldn't care anyway. Once we leave this room, you'll be forgotten. We won't speak your name. We'll erase any thought of you from our memory. We'll only think of Marcy and what a wonderful human being she was. But before the judge imposes the court's punishment, I'm going to issue my own sentence. I sentence you to see the image of my sister's face in your hands. I want your hands to be the constant reminder of the horror you saw in Marcy's face as you squeezed the life out of her. I want this image in your mind every minute of every day for as long as you live.
Thank you. The defendant will stand. A jury of your peers has unanimously found you guilty. Before sentencing, do you have anything to say to the family?
I'm sorry. I got caught.
I have never seen the devil until I met you. Your senseless act of evil will haunt this family and our community forever. Cheek Reese, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without parole. Court is adjourned.
We're back live in the courtroom where Cheek Reese has just been sentenced to life without parole. A fitting verdict for what the judge called a senseless act of evil by a person the judge called the devil. I am making my way over to talk to the family to get their reaction. Excuse me, I'm Gretchen Heath from Channel 10 News. I would like to ask a few questions. First, were you pleased with the verdict?
The court has issued a guilty verdict, and for that we are relieved. But my sister will forever be dead. I can never forget what has been taken from me. When I was 5 years old, I started to lose my eyesight. My sister was always there for me. When I was 5 years old, we did everything together. Marcy made my life as normal as possible. She made sure I experienced living, not as a disabled person, but as a curious young girl. When I couldn't read anymore, she read to me. When I couldn't see the movie screen, she described the action in beautiful descriptive terms so I could actually see, in my mind, each scene. When she killed my sister, I lost my eyesight for a second time. My family is pleased with the verdict. We'd like to go home.
One more question. Would you clarify the meaning behind your prisoner's hands comment?
I just want her to see, in her hands, the image of my sister's face looking back at her. Not just for a brief second, but for every moment, every day, for the rest of her life. There are no words that would have any lasting impression on a murderer. So every time she looks into her hands, she sees the haunting image of my sister's face as she gasped for her last breath. Every time she looks into her hands, she feels the pain my sister felt as the life was being taken from her. This is the memory of my sister. I don't want her ever to forget. I have to go.
One more question, please. Will you ever be able to forgive Chief Reese?
Forgive? Forgive her for what she did? I have no forgiveness in my heart. I can't believe you'd even ask that question.
To recap what happened here today, Chief Reese was found guilty of second-degree murder and given 2 sentences. First, she will have to spend the rest of her life behind bars. And the sister's bizarre sentence of seeing the victim's image in her prisoner's hands. I think now I've heard everything. Chief Reese is now being transported off to the State Correctional Facility. That wraps it up from the courthouse. Gretchen Heath reporting.
The counselor of the prison is now stepping forward.
All right, ladies. Find a place to sit and give me your attention. My name is Kim O'Brien, and I'll be your group counselor. We are here today to talk about your transition into life in Northern State Correctional Facility. We'll be handing out copies of the Disciplinary Procedures Code of Conduct. All the rules of this institution are included in the booklet. There is no excuse for not knowing the rules. Work assignments will now be issued. Billy, you will be in the laundry.
Laundry? I hate doing laundry. My fingers would get all wrinkly.
Sorry, what was I thinking? Here, take this job instead.
Latrine duty? What's that?
That means you clean toilets. Don't get your fingers all wrinkly.
Following the orientation, Billy and Cheek are escorted to prison cell 409.
What bed do you want? If you don't mind, I'd like the one closest to the window. I love the fresh smell of dead fish coming off the lake. My name's Billy. What's yours? What are you in for? I shot my boyfriend accidentally 6 times. I didn't kill him, just a couple of holes in the stomach, arm, and leg. He wasn't very happy. He won't talk to me anymore. Go figure. Anyway, what are you in for? I got 8 to 10 years. I'll be 27 when I get out. What about you? How much time did you get? I have a secret. For the past 2 years, I've been collecting and saving my earwax. Do you want to see it? Oh well, I'll show you later. I'm hungry. When do we eat? I hope their food is eatable. I'm lactose intolerant. Do you have any food issues? Look at the size of these pants. There's room for an elephant. Not my style. What do you think?
Cheek grabs Billy's arm with a firm grip and forces her to the floor.
You're hurting me!
I don't care what you eat, wear, or think. I just want to be left alone. Just shut up!
I just like to talk. I've been that way forever. At least since I was 3 years old. I could never shut up. My old lady thought I had the gift of gab. She said that I was just like her mother. I've tried to stop, but I can't do it.
Cheek can't take it anymore. She grabs Billy by the neck with both hands, and she buckles to the floor. Cheek freezes as she sees the image of the face of the girl she killed in her hands. She releases her grip, but continues to look at her hands. For a moment, she quickly places them behind her.
What's your problem? I'm just trying to make conversation. If you want me to stop talking, I'll stop talking. I have no trouble with that. I'll leave you alone. I'll just keep to myself. You stay on your side of the room, I'll stay on mine over here. There I go again. I just can't stop talking.
The prisoners enter the lunchroom carrying trays consisting of a bowl of soup, slice of bread, white cake, and a cup of water.
What is this crap? Looks like leftover cardboard and cow dung.
Cheek takes a bite of bread, then reaches for her cup of her soup bowl with both hands. She freezes as she stares into the bowl with horror. The image has returned. She drops the bowl and quickly places her hands behind her back and runs out of the lunchroom. Later that day, Cheek enters the recreation room. Sammy and Joe enter playing catch with a basketball. Joe taunts Cheek into playing catch by bouncing the basketball off her body. "Wanna shoot some hoops?" Cheek does not respond. Sammy throws the ball to Cheek. Cheek grabs the ball with both hands. Her eyes freeze on the basketball. She is in a trance as the haunting image has appeared again as she stares at the basketball. Cheek places her hands into her pockets and runs to her prison cell. She crosses to the sink to wash her hands and face. Her wet hands cup her face as she looks into the mirror. She has become the image of her victim. Horror consumes her face as she looks at her hands. Cheek's energy is drained as she lies on the bed. Panicking, she crosses to a drawer and picks up a pair of long white socks. She slides her right hand into the sock and does the same with her left hand. Billy enters the cell and sees Cheek with her sock-covered hands.
What's with the socks? Are you cold? I get chilled as soon as the sun goes down. Once in a while, I get goosebumps for no reason. In the winter, my pointer finger gets really cold from the second knuckle to the tip. Go figure.
Later that evening, Cheek sits on the side of the bed examining the cake that Peggy, an inmate, placed on the stool. With her socked hands, she picks up the cake and eats. When Cheek is finished, she pulls the blankets over her head and begins to sob. The next morning in the cafeteria, the prisoners enter carrying trays of scrambled eggs, toast, and a cup of water. Cheek is the last to enter, still wearing socks over her hands.
The sock man from Alcatraz? Are you cold? Hey Joe, did you see the latest prison fashion statement? Sock mittens! She hears voices too.
Please leave me alone.
The creature speaks! I hear her talk to herself all the time. Late at night when we're asleep, I hear her cry. She'll curl up in a ball and cover herself in a blanket to muffle the sound. Then she cries like a little girl.
After repeated orders by the guards for Billy to quiet down, she is escorted to solitary.
No, help me quiet. Don't take me out. No, you're hurting me. Let me go. I have rights too. Ow, you're pinching me. Keep your hands to yourself. Watch where you're grabbing me, Buster.
Kim O'Brien, the counselor, calls Cheek into her office for a private consultation. Cheek enters with sock-covered hands. She is no longer the brash, angry prisoner. Cheek has morphed into a meek shell of the person we saw in the courtroom. The haunting image of the face in her hands has taken its toll.
Cheek, I called you in today to talk to you concerning reports about your unusual behavior. Why don't you start from the beginning? How did you end up here?
My parents were the happiest couple in town. They were called Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Every night they would go to their favorite bar and get blasted and sing and dance their way home. Can't tell you how many brothers and sisters I had. My mom didn't even know. I heard her tell a social worker once, think I had more boys than girls. As soon as she would pop them out, social services would be there to take them away. My mother was a little deficient in her motherly skills. Living in a cold water flat, she knew enough to heat the water for our baths. But when I was a baby, she forgot one important thing. Don't place the baby in the water pot while it's still on the hot stove. To this day, I still have the burn marks from the scalding water in the bottom of the metal pan. That's how I got the scar on my cheek. When I was old enough, I was told to go and spend winters with Uncle Bob to cook and clean and be nice to him. In the spring, my dad got really mad at me because I got knocked up. They weren't upset that I got pregnant, but because the baby had died, and he had to buy a coffin and a cemetery plot. After that, I just walked out the door and kept on walking. I've never looked back. Instead of waiting for things to come to me, I just started taking. Whatever I wanted, I would take. Don't get in my way or try and stop me.
Do you want to talk about why you wear socks on your hands?
Please. Help me. Help me. I just want my life back. I just want to be able to use my hands, but this face keeps appearing whenever I look at my hands and I can't get it out of my mind. I can't take this anymore. I can't live like this.
Cheek, there is someone who would like to talk to you.
Whitney Reagan is escorted into the room by one of the guards. Panic and anger consumes Cheek as she stands as if to attack.
Get her out of my sight. She made my life hell. I have nothing to say to her. I want to go back to my cell. Please listen to me. The other day, I found myself alone, sitting on the front porch. Something my sister and I would always do before going to bed. I don't have to listen to this crap. Yes, you do. You have to listen to me for 5 minutes, and I'll be out of your life forever. In the past, when Marcy and I sat on our front porch, she would describe what was happening in the neighborhood. This past evening, it had been raining, and the patter of the raindrops were falling at a calming, easy, light pace. You sit and wait for the next sound to interrupt the quiet. Then you hear the wet, splashing footsteps and laughter of a young couple hurriedly passing as they try to avoid the raindrops. And then I felt the presence of my sister. She was sitting with me on the bench. It's because of her that I can see the details of my surroundings. It isn't until I think about her face that the horror sets in. Her face was the last thing I saw before my eyesight was taken from me. The memory of that bright, smiling face was always my last wonderful vision of my sister. That is until I sentenced you to seeing my sister's agonizing expression as you choked the life out of her. I not only sentenced you, but I sentenced myself too. I'm here to correct that. Something that could hurt us forever needs to be removed.
I want to go back to my cell.
Please stand. There's something I must do. Put your hands out.
Cheek slowly extends her sock-covered arms. Whitney reaches out to touch her hands, only to be startled by the surprising feeling of sock-covered hands. She carefully removes the socks. Whitney takes Cheek's hands and places them on her neck. Cheek gives the impression that she might strangle Whitney, but her hands move from Whitney's neck to cupping her face.
This is the face I want you to remember. Marcy and I were twins.
Cheek is overcome with emotion. She stares at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. Cheek sits.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me my life back. I'm ready to go.
Whitney, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Cheek sits alone. Her hands cover her face. She bows her head, closes her eyes, and puts her hands together in prayer, and sobs. one final comment is that, we know every criminal has a backstory to them. And it doesn't necessarily justify what they did, but at least it helps us to understand what this particular prisoner was going through. Thank you for your time. And Brenda,
Thanks, Jack.
Yep.
Thanks, ladies. Excellent job.